Welcome back to One Hit Wonderland, where we look at bands and artists known for only one song. Hey, you know how a few years ago I had to sell off some requests because my car broke? Well, I had to do it again because my dog broke. So I decided to sell off some requests again to pay for my expensive dog repair, and also because I deserve some compensation for the emotional labor of looking at my sad dog in her cone of shame. So that'll be my year. Our first request comes from my most famous friend, C. Robert Cargill, and he gave me a full list of suggestions, and I went with the last of them because it allows me to talk about one of my favorite things I'm minorly obsessed about, the Canadian Music Hall of Fame. I don't know why, but I love researching the insular and incestuous Canadian music industry, especially its most exclusive honor, since they only have a handful of true legends. Sorry, Canada. So it mostly falls into three categories. The superstars, maybe not S-tier acts like the Beatles, but household names who sold a ton of records and deserve some flowers they might not get down here. And then you've got the hometown heroes, unknown in America, but truly beloved up there. Important for national pride to have acts like that are only yours. And then there's my personal favorite, the flashes in the pan with a couple pop hits who are the only act they could book that year.
He was the heartbeat of pop music in the 80s and 90s.
Anybody got any pair of sunglasses?
I love you, Canada. You're not gonna trick me into thinking the sunglasses at night guy was this George Michael level pop star. Anyway, somewhere overlapping all of these categories is 2003's Hall of Fame inductee Tom Cochrane, and Cochrane is a Canuck legend. Below the frozen north, however, the name only brings to mind a single tune.
Life is a highway, I wanna ride it all night long.
You know it. Sing along.
Life is a highway, I wanna drive it all night long. One day and the next day gone.
Now, this is a fascinating career because he is a star in Canada and a complete unknown in any other country, even for people who love this song. If you downloaded this off of Kazaa in the early 2000s, it almost certainly told you it was by Tom Petty. If you are younger than middle age, you probably know it better from the Rascal Flatts version from the Cars soundtrack. Ka-chow! I don't like that movie. But if you're old enough, you will remember the real version, as performed by a blonde man playing a harmonica and sporting a haircut and wardrobe which I can only describe as Canadian. In late 1991 and most of 1992, as rock and roll took a severe turn to the downbeat, Tom Cochrane blasts out a good time song that has endured through the ages and made him a legend in his home country. He has lots of fans. In Canada. You've never met them. But in this country, Tom drove down the highway for a short visit and then went right back home. Which feels a little insulting to our closest neighbor's favorite son. How can this guy be so big north of the border and just completely unknown here? Well, we're gonna find out. Is he in fact one of the best artists alive and we're all just too snobby down here to appreciate him? Or is it just like one of those things Canadians insist are good but aren't, like curling? Or their smug, talky movies. Sorry, Canada. You'll deal with it.
When the light comes in, just tell them we're survivors. Life is a...
Alright, so do me a favor and tune into your local classic rock station, I believe those still exist, and listen to it for a good 48 hours. I'll wait. Alright, that should have been enough time for you to hear a particular song. It probably sounded kind of familiar, but you weren't quite able to place it. It wasn't Pink Floyd, it wasn't Blue Oyster Cult, and it wasn't Twilight Zone by Golden Earring, and you can't really sing along to it, or know any of the words, or remember how it goes, but you know it. God damn it, you know it. Okay, well that is Lunatic Fringe by the band Red Rider, and that is where Tom Cochrane first enters our story. Now, Cochrane actually existed before this, born way up in the most northern parts of nowhere, Canada. In 1973, he released his first unnotable solo record, and after a brief time trying to make it in California, he moved back home. But in 1979, he joined an existing band in Toronto that would launch him to the wider world, called Red Rider.
I'm white high, I can't take it anymore.
Now, Red Rider had several hits right away in Canada, but the song that would break them in America was Lunatic Fringe, a moody song inspired by World War II, and specifically watching the Nazis take over the country. No resonance today, obviously. And again, this seriously does make me think the band had listened to a lot of The Wall before recording it. Anyway, it is a protest song, arguably, about the rising tide of fascism. That's some heavy stuff for a song I mostly associate with that scene from Eastbound and Down where Kenny realizes April stuck him with the baby.
Fuck me.
Good shit. Now, like I said, you probably heard it. It shows up in a lot of soundtracks, and it's a pretty good time capsule of mullet rock at the start of the 80s. Allegedly, Red Rider had some other songs that got play on the rock stations too, but Lunatic Fringe is the only one anyone remembers, making Tom Cochrane my favorite of pop phenomena, the double one-hit wonder.
I just think it tapped into an American nerve. You know, there's something about that song, maybe because of the America tends to be a little bit more of a violent environment and
Hey, who gave you the right to call Americans violent? Say that to my face, Canadian, I'll kick your ass. Anyway, up north, they put out a series of platinum albums, and that's Canadian platinum, so watch out for that exchange rate. But they never really broke in America, partially because they wouldn't move to LA like their manager wanted. That manager is Bruce Allen, who's an industry legend up there, brought many Canadian acts to fame. Michael Bublé, Loverboy, Bryan Adams, who we'll get to later. But apparently they fell out with Allen over this, bad enough to the point of diss tracks. The band started to struggle at that point and even broke up briefly, though they were still big enough to get onto Canadian We Are the World. He's in there somewhere. But they reunited quickly with some lineup shuffling, and it sounds like there was some intra-band power jockeying going on, and that Tom won the Game of Thrones there, because from here on out they are called Tom Cochrane and Red Rider. And Cochrane taking full charge was the right move, I guess, because from here on out they become mega hit makers of CanCon. Actually, I can't remember if I've mentioned CanCon before, but if you don't know this one, Canada has a rule that all the radio stations have to play a certain percentage of Canadian content, because otherwise they'd be crushed under Uncle Sam's cultural imperialist boot. This is why, even though I normally feel bad for calling bands one-hit wonders if they're big in their home country, I don't here, because Canada is juicing the stats. Like, there's a big asterisk for all of Red Rider's hits as far as I'm concerned. At this point, they also became kind of a more commercial band, and at this point, Bryan Adams' comparisons become unavoidable because they have very similar singing voices. Yeah, I guess that "oh" is just a Canadian accent. Who knew? He hates when you say this, by the way. Anyway, their biggest hit during this period was a sports anthem called Big League, about a kid who's gonna play in the big leagues. And naturally, you know which sports I'm talking about.
Out after school and back on ice.
Anything hockey related is automatically CanCon, for the record.
My boy's gonna knock 'em dead.
This was my favorite discovery and research. I like this one a lot. It's like a Canadian version of Center Field. You know, put me in, coach. Except, you know, it's horribly tragic.
With this girl in Lake McLean, hit a truck doing 70 in the wrong lane to the big league. You never can tell when you might check out.
That's sad. Some real mixed messages about the greatness of highways from this guy, I gotta say. Red Rider also died tragically before they made it to the big leagues in America. Even though Lunatic Fringe was a rock radio standard and allegedly some other songs got radio play too and they'd show up as background music from Miami Vice and stuff like that, they never really got anywhere in America. And naturally, when the lead singer of your band has already renamed it Me and the Some Other Guys, you're probably going to be looking for work pretty soon. Tom had outgrown Red Rider. It was time for bigger, better things. The 90s were a new decade. The future was stretching before him like the glorious open road. down the road, asshole!
It's like a road that you travel on
When Tom went solo, he was told by friends that he sounded like a different artist altogether. Like, Red Riders was a very 80s band. And there's something altogether, well, I don't know, not grittier exactly, but more earthy about Life is a Highway. Like, you can hear it immediately, that bright, sunny blast of guitar and harmonica. You would never guess the guy who made something as dark as Lunatic Fringe could make something this carefree. If you have a song with the word highway in it, it has to be a really good song for driving, and Life is a Highway is one of the best. Now, Canada is also mostly highway, so you can easily tell what Tom Cochrane was inspired by. The glory of the open road, the sights, the sounds, the new places, shit that just puts you in a good mood.
I saw, we were shot at. I saw somebody die in front of me of starvation. It was just, left a lot of scars on my psyche.
Okay, let's back up. In the late 80s, like so many well-meaning pop stars, Tom Cochrane got involved in relief efforts in Africa. But he was like actually out there doing it, not just putting on a self-serving concert. And apparently he saw some shit, and it fucked him up.
I'd had this sketch sitting around, and we had actually done a mock-up of it.
Now, at that point, Life is a Highway was a half-written and shelved song he had in his back pocket for a long time. And after his trip to Africa, he needed some kind of way to process all the human suffering he had seen, and Life is a Highway was the result.
There's not much time left today. Life is a highway.
Like, boy, you see some shit in life, right? But, life is a journey, that's what happens. You take the good, you take the bad, you take them both, and there you have the facts of life, which is a highway. I guess this self-pep talk worked because the song is so cheerful that I would not have ever guessed that this was what it was trying to say. And there might have been something about that sentiment in the air because you might remember a variation on it in one of the biggest movies of the 90s.
My mom always said life was like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're gonna get.
Right, life is a highway, life is a box of chocolates. Just like Tom, Mrs. Gump there is trying to put a pretty face on the crappiness of life. You never know what you're gonna get. Like a box of chocolates, if you consider tragedy and death another flavor of chocolate. But I guess you can hear the influence of his time in Africa because, there's also the sense of shit happens to everyone, quit whining about it. Look how good you have it.
It's a world outside the darkened door where blues won't haunt you anymore.
That's certainly how people took it. It's a big smile on your face song, and going solo feels like the right move for Tom because he sounds a lot freer without the band. He says he wanted to get more bluesy and I don't know, that's how I describe it, but there is something gloriously free of the 80s in it.
I wanna drive it all night long.
But how good is this song really?
There was a distance between you and I.
The fact is, much like Life is a Highway itself, my script for this episode was an unfinished thing I had in my back pocket for a long time that it took me until it got requested to finish. And the reason is, I don't really have any strong feelings about Life is a Highway. Like, deserves to be a big hit? Yeah, absolutely. Glad it exists. You'd have to have a giant stick up your ass to be anti-Life is a Highway. But I have also never listened to it on purpose. And Tom himself seems a little perplexed as to how this caught on so big.
It's like Life's a Highway asked me to explain why it's a #1 song in Canada. I can't. Other than the fact that it makes you tap your foot, and it's a happy song. It's infectious, I guess. That's as close as I can come. But to say it's a better
Is that it?
song than Big League.
Yeah, I guess. It's catchy. It's fun and catchy. It's just like a song everyone agrees on. It was a rock song, not necessarily an alternative song, but it didn't really sound all that out of place next to Toad the Wet Sprocket or Little Miss Can't Be Wrong. But it had that southern rock edge that gave it airtime with Bonnie Raitt and Tom Petty, and the country audience loved it even before Rascal Flatts got to it. There were country covers before the 90s even ended. Rock was rapidly getting moodier. But here was this bright, happy song that everyone can enjoy, including non-Canadians. I mean, that definitely looks like some American desert, right when that was the dominant aesthetic in pop culture, even though that is in fact central Alberta. So naturally, while it was a big hit in several countries, nowhere loved it more than Canada. And he does rep his home country proudly. Ah yes, Vancouver, the city of lights. Not Paris, Tokyo, New York. Only a native Canuck would have put the city of Vancouver in that line. Like, I'm sure Vancouver's very nice. But naturally, this made Tom one of the biggest names in Canada, which brings us to a fun moment in Canadian music history, the great Bryan Adams-Tom Cochrane feud of 1992. It's not that great. It's kind of a funny story. It turns out that Bryan Adams hates the Canadian music industry because of some weird CanCon rule that said his music wasn't Canadian enough. Also, Adams just hates the CanCon rules in general. He thinks this whole affirmative action for local bands thing just holds bands back.
There's a lot of artists that have been successful in Canada that can't get arrested anywhere else in the world. And it's because of this sort of, what I think is breeding mediocrity.
Which, for a guy with global ambitions like Bryan Adams, like, I do kind of see where he's coming from. Very few Canadian artists had the ambition to suck on an international scale like Bryan Adams did. Anyway, this was a big deal at the 1992 Juno Awards, which is their Grammys.
We now have conclusive proof that Bryan Adams is 100% Canadian. During the number, his dressing room was searched, and we found stacks of shopping receipts from Tops Friendly Market in Buffalo dated on a Sunday.
I'm sure if you're Canadian, that's hilarious. Anyway, Bryan Adams did win a lot of awards that year, but so did Tom Cochrane. And when he accepted his, he said, quote, "There's some incredible music being made in this country. Anyone who says Canadian music is mediocre can go to hell." The Junos have not made this clip available online, as this act of impoliteness would ruin their national image. So there you have it. Tom Cochrane was now big enough to be causing national controversy. Weird for such a carefree song. But there we are. At long last, Tom Cochrane was a known quantity outside of Canada. Where would his highway lead next? This is Tom's second solo single, No Regrets.
Walking by the roadside.
And like a lot of follow-up singles I cover on here, No Regrets is fine, I guess. It's, it's about how you have to go through life with no regrets. Because life is a highway. Or whatever. It's similar, is what I'm saying. That's a pretty common theme on this show, where I'm like, oh wow, this sounds just like their big hit if their big hit was about half as memorable. It is better than mediocre, though. I cannot believe Bryan Adams, of all people, had the fucking nerve. But I'm picky about this. Lots of non-one-hit wonders follow their first hit with songs I don't think are as good, and they still do fine. Tom Cochrane could have been one of them. So I'm gonna have to dig a little harder here to figure out why. Here's the third single, Sinking Like a Sunset.
I am not a rock, and I can feel it now. But for a moment, I'd like to forget that my heart is sinking like a sunset.
This is good. I don't know why this didn't catch on.
Sinking like a sunset.
Well, I think I need to make a guess at least. You don't watch these episodes for me to just shrug and say, I don't know. So let's see if we can't find an overarching trend going on. What year was it? 92? That's right, it's time for another episode of Nirvana Killed Mike. I don't know. This one might be a stretch, I don't know about this one. What I can say for sure is that 1992 was a year of rapid change. And when we talk about the alternative revolution sweeping out a lot of the dead weight of the 80s, we don't just mean hair metal. We mean adult contemporary. We mean a lot of the college rock. We mean whatever Tom Cochrane was a member of. Which, I guess the closest description is heartland rock. Like Springsteen and Mellencamp and Tom Petty and stuff like that. By 1992, this was also a dying genre. Like, all those guys would continue to move records, but if you were not already established, your window for growing an audience there was closed. This was an aging genre with an aging demographic who were not interested in finding new artists. If you were not established enough to be part of the traveling Wilburys, you were not going to make it.
When it's
All of these songs were released in 1991, and they sound so 1991. And they were already kind of dated by 92, and they were complete nonsense by 93. And just in general, time never looks kindly on mainstream rock. Rock for normies is not rock and roll at all. The last single from this album was called Washed Away, which is also the only other Tom Cochrane song to touch the Hot 100.
round and round and round we go. Where it stops, don't no one know. Find the love, you better let her know. You both get washed away.
This is good. This deserves to be bigger. And at the same time, you can hear it, right? This is old people's music. This is Don Henley stuff. There was just not much runway left in the 90s for it. I don't know, that's one guess at least. I don't know, maybe Bryan Adams was right. Maybe the Canadian music industry was holding him back. Maybe he did need to move to America if he wanted to get big. Kinda? Not really. A few more albums in the 90s which did not do a goddamn thing in America. Like, those albums forgot their passport because they got stopped right at the border. In fact, he didn't last much longer in Canada either. He released his next album in 1995 called Ragged Ass Road, which is another Canadian reference I don't get. And also, that title's a pretty good indicator on how his highway was progressing. You can hear him leaning hard into the Mellencamp Heartland rock sound. Call him John Beaver Mellencamp. Like, this is fine, but obviously it's also not Life is a Highway. And it's not like there was a huge market for regular American Mellencamp in 95 either. And that was the last time he was big in Canada either. By that point, Canada had some real global superstars blowing up. Not just local legends like Tom Cochrane. I also think the music might have gotten less solid.
And I wonder what it's like to be the best in space.
I mean, what is this? And what is this awful goatee? Yeah, when you start sporting that, it's over, eh? So since then, he's kind of settled into his role as an elder statesman of Canadian rock, and they have inducted him into every Hall of Fame they have up there. I should be careful and point out that I don't necessarily know that he's beloved by Canadians or if he's just beloved by the Canadian music industry, which is not the same thing. I wouldn't want to assume that Her and John Legend are the biggest names in America. But judging by the information I have, he is still treated like fucking royalty up there. They named a major road near his hometown the Tom Cochrane's Life is a Highway, and of course he got into the Canadian Hall of Fame 3 years before Bryan Adams did. I'd bump him up from 2 big hits to maybe 4 or 5. I didn't hear this guy's stuff and think like, wow, where have you been hiding this guy, Canada? Now, Bruce Cockburn, that's a singer you guys should share with the world. On the other hand, is Cochrane better than Bryan Adams? Absolutely, you fucking bet. If I could make them trade careers, I absolutely would. I think I agree with Cochrane that Life is a Highway isn't his greatest, deepest work or his best song, but it is his best pop song. And sometimes you just need a reminder to take your life as it comes. Like if your dog has a growth on her eye that needs to be removed and it swells up so much that it busts her stitches and she needs to have reconstructive surgery on her eyelid and you have to sell a bunch of requests to pay for it and that's the next fucking year of your life. Life! It's a highway. And one last thing. Do you remember a while back I did a one-hit Wonderland video about the band Harvey Danger, and I happened to mention that the lead singer was also a music critic and probably a better one than I am? Well, he's about to be a better content creator than I am also. That guy is named Sean Nelson, and he has a new podcast, The Wonder of It All, about the blessings and curses of success, where he interviews all sorts of famous artists like John Hodgman or Adam Duritz from the Counting Crows about the ways their lives and careers were shaped by one conspicuous breakthrough moment, and how the experience changed their lives and careers for good and for bad. It's kind of like my show, One Hit Wonderland, except I never had the guts to talk to any of those people in person. And you can check out this new podcast on Nebula, a creator-specific platform where you can watch other great creators like Big Joel, FD Signifier, and myself. It is the most exciting independent platform around right now, and you can get a lifetime membership. For literally just $300, you will never have to pay a single cent ever again to subscribe. For as long as both you and Nebula exist on this earth, you're in. Or if you want to do just the regular monthly subscription, you can sign up with my link. Not only will you get access to the entire Nebula library, but you will get it for only $6 a month. Or if you sign up for the annual subscription, only $3 a month. And you'll also be helping me out specifically, which I would appreciate. So click the link in the description and check it out below. Thank you, and good night.
It's like a road that you travel on. There's one day here and the next day gone. Sometimes you bend, sometimes you stand, sometimes you turn your back to the wind. There's a world outside